And as expected, as the sun coming up in the morning, Democratic Socialists ignore Cuban protesters railing against communist dictatorship. Thousands of based Cubans, I added that, marched on Havana's Malecon Promenade and elsewhere. Imagine that. Democratic Socialists who are on the left side of the political spectrum in our government ignore Cuban protesters railing against communist dictatorship. Imagine my shock. All right, here we go. You see, this does not surprise me one bit, and it shouldn't surprise you one bit, that our scummy, commie, socialist douchebags in our government, even in our country, ignore this. Do you really think that the Cuban protesters inside Cuba want to live the way they do? Now, some of them do because they've got political power there, and so they don't want to upset that apple cart. Well, the base Cubans that came over on, rafts and, vehicles, stuffed with styrofoam across 90 miles, the Cuban-Florida Strait into Florida to get out of that repressive regime. Our government, our left side of the political spectrum, don't give a shit. They don't care. They actually want to stop it. If you really want to ask them about it, if you really get into their mind, they don't want that to happen. They want Cuba to be a shining example, or actually a shining cesspool of an example of what we can aspire and make our country be, just like Cuba. And if you've been to Cuba, which I have, actually I have, been to Guantanamo Bay. Besides that, it wasn't vacation, it was in 95 for something else. But I was there, and not in Cuba proper, but I was in Guantanamo Bay. I get it. How can you have an opinion if you haven't been there? I haven't been there. But I've seen their dirty work in Central and South America. These socialist a-holes and these commie puss bags. I've seen it. It's not good. So, anti-government protests broke out Sunday in Cuba, demanding freedom and calling on the disbandment of the country's communist dictatorship. Good luck unless you fight them for it. That ain't gonna happen. Okay, Fox News has emailed reps Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashid Tlaib, and Senator Bernie Sanders, and has yet to receive any response from any of them. As early as Monday, none have even mentioned the protest on social media, and they won't mention that protest because they don't agree with it at all. And then, police initially trailed behind as protesters chanted freedom enough and unite. One motorcyclist pulled out a U.S. flag, but it was snatched from him by others. Whoa, that's, The potato administration was criticized on social media for appearing to have difficulty finding its footing on how to respond to the protest. Because they don't agree with the protest. That goddamn filthy fucking potato does not like anti-socialist, anti-communist protests. He fucking hates it. He's disgusted by it. Because if he was for it, he would be out there in front of this. But he's not. Why? Because he's a goddamn piece of fucking shit. That fucking Biden potato fuckstick is a cocksucking motherfucking asshole. Piece of shit, garbage human. Right across the board. Senator Marco Rubio, of course he's Cuban, took to the State Department to task over a tweet that blamed the protests on concerns over COVID-19 and not the worsening economic situation or the fact that protesters chanted, "We want liberty," or "Nosotros queremos libertad," I think, which would be, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. People in Cuba are protesting 62 years of socialism, lies, tyranny, and misery, not expressing concern about rising COVID-19 cases and deaths. That's at their least of their concerns. It's that they can't speak out against their government. If they do speak out against their government, they die or wind up in prison. Yeah, they're really concerned about COVID-19. Shut the fuck up. Our State Department is fucking shit ever since Donald Trump was removed from office, put it that way. Stupid State Department is. And Anthony Blinken, you're a piece of shit. Why aren't you out saying something about this? Oh, that's right. You're a fucking goddamn commie fuck. Fuck you, Anthony Blinken, you piece of shit. Fuck off. Get in front of this, you goddamn piece of shit. Because you're showing your true colors. That just shows me that you are hired for the State Department job because you're a goddamn filthy fucking socialist asshole cocksucker, just like your butt buddy got goddamn fucking potato. Yes, That is true. You goddamn piece of shit. Get out in front of this and start supporting these motherfuckers out there in the streets in Cuba, in Havana, in Santiago de Cuba. Yes, you need to be out in front of this and supporting these people. If you don't, then you fuck them over once a fucking again, just like Kami Kamsunkas. Oh god, I'm so fucking pissed. I can't even fucking talk. So, critics will likely say that these democratic socialists are remaining quiet in the early stage of the protest because there are so many unknowns. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, who heads the Communist Party, has already called on the country's revolutionaries to counter the demonstrations. And we'll show that right here. And here you go. The Cuba's president wants revolutionary citizens to counter-protest anti-communist protesters. The Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel wants revolutionaries to counter-protest the largest demonstrations against the communist regime in decades. The call for revolutionary counter-protesters is concerning U.S. officials, with White House National Security Advisor saying on Twitter that the U.S. supports freedom of expression. They really don't. They really don't. They don't. They don't. On Twitter, it says U.S. Assembly across Cuba would strongly condemn any violence or targeting of peaceful protesters who are exercising their universal rights. What are you going to do about it? We sent a strongly worded letter to the president of Cuba that we don't like it. Jake Sullivan, you piece of shit. GOP Senator Ted Cruz, who is the son of a Cuban immigrant, shared his thoughts about the protests on Twitter. He said the communist Cuban regime will likely be consigned as a dustbin of history. Of course, the American people stand squarely behind the men and women of Cuba in their noble fight for liberty. Democratic socialist Bernie Sanders of Vermont has remained silent, of course, according to Fox News. Sanders previously praised Cuba's communist regime and Fidel Castro for its literacy program. Right. Their literacy program is for you to read Marx and Engels and nothing else, and extol the virtues of Lenin. It's just you can't make this up. And to continue, so Democratic Socialists tweeted, but honestly, when it comes to Latinos, the party's just never seriously made an effort, apparently referring to the Democrat Party. Mexicans, Central Americans, Caribbean, and Chicanos, Cubans are not the only important community. And this is from Ocasio-Cortez. What a twat. Trump administration went in favor with the bloc of Cuban American voters who support this hardline stance on Cuba after he abandoned attempts at diplomacy brokered under the former President Barack Hussein Obama, reimposed economic sanctions, and tightened travel restrictions that had been relaxed under Barack Hussein Obama, emphasizing Hussein. National Review reported that these legislators have never denounced Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has described Maduro as a brutal dictator and vowed to continue recognizing opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's rightful leader, a position shared by more than 50 nations. In 2019, Omar, Democrat Minnesota, went as far as to accuse the U.S. government as leading a coup against Maduro. If they were, good for them. Following his win during Nevada's caucus in 2020 Democratic national primaries, Sanders was asked by Anderson Cooper during an interview why the Cuban people didn't rise up and help the U.S. overthrow the Castro regime. Sanders replied that the dictator educated their kids through indoctrination, gave their kids health care, totally transformed the society. Well, only if you have the correct political ideology. If we don't know, seeing that if you're a Cuban, then you're not part of the rich elite, which you barely get a stipend for anything. But like I said, this is where we're at, where we have our own government, our own legislators, our own senators, our own cabinet positions not really saying anything. Why? Well, it's obvious. They are not on board with Cuban uprising. They're not. They won't be. Why? Because let's put it this way. Why do you think the potato administration wants Mexican and Central Americans to come across our border? Because they know eventually they're going to be voting Democrat. More often than not, over 50% of Cuban immigrants that come across the straits into our country, they usually vote, for the most part, over 50%, in my opinion, for Republicans. They don't like that. That means that more often than not, if Cuba gets overthrown in a proper Republican form of government, it gets installed, not a Democrat government or a proper Republican form of government, it's not going to be high. They're not going to be high in the hog, if you will, to support a potato administration in the United States. A Democrat socialist potato administration in the United States. They're just not. And so this is why they're not on board with it. They don't like this. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, they hate this. Oh, especially Cori Bush. Oh, she fucking hates this. She's a fucking piece of shit for Democrat, socialist from Missouri. She fucking hates this uprising because it goes against all their narratives that push out that we just haven't tried socialism yet, guys. No, we haven't tried socialism. It always works until it doesn't. And this is in fact shows that after you kept the thumb on them for over 60 years, then you got COVID-19 pop up. Then guess what? They've had enough. We'll see if this continues, but I hope it does. And I'm behind these people in Cuba 1,000% against these freaking brutal tyrants that have ruled that country for the last 60 years.